He's not your soulmate. He's your shadow. Have you ever loved someone so deeply it felt like your soul had been waiting for them your entire life only for that very person to shatter you? In those first moments, you thought he must be my destiny. But beneath the spellbinding connection, what if he wasn't a gift from the universe? What if he was a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of you? Carl Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in love, that darkness often comes dressed as desire, glimmering, urgent, magnetic, convincing you that you found your soulmate. But in truth, you've collided with your shadow self, the part of you that's been rejected, repressed, but never truly gone. In analytical psychology, Jung called this projection when we unconsciously cast our unhealed wounds, our unmet needs, our immature parts onto another. And the danger is this: the more desperately we long to be whole, the more likely we are to fall in love with our own shadow. You weren't wrong to love him. You just didn't realize this love came from a place deeper than logic, deeper than emotion. It came from your subconscious. And if left unexamined, you'll keep repeating the same story with different faces. This video isn't just about a love that went wrong. It's about the hidden mechanism that draws us irresistibly to those who hurt us most. Together we'll explore, why did you love him so deeply? What part of you was being activated? And how can you tell who is your light and who is merely your shadow? This journey is not for those afraid of meeting themselves. But if you're tired, truly tired of emotional loops that never end, then maybe it's time to descend into a deeper layer of your psyche. Because sometimes the first step to finding your soulmate is daring to look your shadow in the eye. Let us enter Jung's world together, where love is no longer a blind miracle, but a path toward the soul's awakening. There is a kind of pain you cannot name, only feel, a hollow ache that clings to your heart after a relationship ends. Not because he betrayed you, not exactly because he left, but because in the wreckage it feels like you lost a part of yourself. In truth, nothing was lost. What you encountered was your shadow self, the darker part of you awakened by that man. In Carl Jung's psychology, the shadow is the part of your personality you've denied, feelings, memories, desires that you learned to suppress because they weren't beautiful, worthy, or acceptable in the eyes of society or your childhood home. But what we forget doesn't disappear. It only hides in the subconscious, waiting to be seen. The man who left you breathless, spellbound. He may not have been your soulmate. He may have been the embodied image of the shadow you've never dared to face. Have you ever felt like he was a part of you, as if he saw straight into your soul, made you want to run? And yet you couldn't let go, as if with him you became both your most authentic self and your most wounded child. That's not coincidence, that is projection. It's a mechanism of the unconscious using another person as a mirror to reveal aspects of yourself you've never recognized. And in relationships, that mirror often takes the shape of the ideal man. Jung called this anima and animus, the inner archetypes representing the feminine in men, anima, and the masculine in women, animus. But instead of living harmoniously within us, they often appear as illusions of romantic love. You think you love him, but what you truly love is an incomplete image of your own psyche. And the relationship becomes a stage where your shadow is given space to perform. You start to notice yourself controlling, doubting, yearning, demanding aspects you used to deny. Or in contrast, you become unusually submissive, self-sacrificing, losing yourself completely, just to be loved, just to be seen. The shadow is not just the dark side. It is the missing part of you trying to come home. And that man was merely the one holding the key to a door you locked long ago. A woman once told me she was always drawn to distant, mysterious, emotionally unavailable men, even though she knew they would hurt her. Every time the story ended in tears, until one day in therapy she recalled a memory from when she was 7. Her father, whom she adored, had never hugged her, never praised her, always calm, always cold, always stern. She didn't love emotionally distant men. She was unconsciously reenacting a wound that had never been healed. Jung called this the compulsion of repetition, the unconscious urge to relive our deepest wounds, hoping that this time it might end differently. That is why some relationships feel so familiar. Not because you knew each other in a past life, but because your psyche is repeating an old script, changing the actors, changing the setting, but keeping the same emotional blueprint. But if he was just your shadow, then where is your true soulmate? The answer is they cannot come until you reclaim your shadow. You cannot recognize your soulmate while you're still haunted by phantom lovers, by love stories born of illusion. You cannot enter a wholehearted relationship if your soul is still entangled with a psychological ghost. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So if you wish to change your romantic fate, you don't need to find a different man. You need to become the woman you once abandoned. The woman who knows she is worthy. The woman who dares to set boundaries. The woman who understands that her desires are not shameful. The woman strong enough to look her shadow in the eye and say, I see you, and I'm not afraid of you anymore. If you're in a relationship that pulls you in, yet makes you feel like you're losing yourself, pause. Write down what's been hurting you in this connection. Then ask yourself, where in my past have I felt this before? You might be surprised to find the man you love now is just a stand-in for a memory left unfinished. And when you see that, you begin to wake up. You begin to reclaim the parts of yourself you gave away. And bit by bit, you return to yourself more whole, more conscious, more free. If this video stirred something within you, I invite you to share in the comments. This is not just your story. It's the journey of a generation learning to heal inherited shadows. Tell me which shadow once pulled you in, and what did it teach you? Together, we are building a community where wounds are no longer hidden, but honored as sacred parts of our awakening. Don't hold back. Your words today might be the light for someone still lost in the dark. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the unconscious mechanisms that pull you into repeat relationships and how to withdraw your projections so you can begin to love with awareness. This journey has only just begun, and you are not alone. Stay with me. There's a strange magnetism that pulls us back into the same kind of love over and over, as if the universe keeps sending us replicas of the same person, just with different faces. Why is it that we, despite having grown, read the books, lived through the heartbreak, still fall for the same old soul in a brand new body? The answer lies in the deepest layer of consciousness projection. Carl Jung once wrote, projection makes the whole world seem like your own reflection. In other words, the world around you isn't the real world. It's a giant mirror reflecting the unconscious parts of yourself. Nowhere is this more evident than in love. You meet a man. There's something captivating about him, the way he looks at you, the distance he keeps, the wounded defiance in his eyes. You feel, I want to heal this person. Or worse, if he loves me, everything will finally make sense. But the truth is, you're not in love with him. You're in love with a projection and image cast by your unconscious. A wounded part of yourself you've never faced directly, and instead of turning inward to heal it, you project it outward onto someone else. This is the spiritual trap Jung warned about. The shadow doesn't only show up in your darkest moments, it disguises itself in idealism, in savior fantasies, in the illusion of destined love. A woman once wrote to me, I loved him like no one else existed. But the more I loved him, the more I fell apart. I gave up everything, my career, my friends, my sleep, my self-worth, just to hold on to someone who never wanted to stay. I asked her, what did he actually do that made you feel safe? She paused, then answered, nothing. But he felt like my loneliness made human. That answer broke something in me, because that's what Jung called the convergence of shadows. The other person didn't come to love you. He came to awaken the parts of you that are starving for love from you. The abandoned child, the unseen woman, the generational wounds passed down from mothers and grandmothers who never got to be fully themselves. Why does this matter? Because if you're not aware of your projections, you'll keep loving the wrong people. You'll keep repeating old patterns. You'll keep handing over your soul to people who were never meant to hold it. And here's the tragedy of projection. It always comes with blindness. You don't see that you're projecting. You only know that you're in love, wildly, irrationally, devastatingly. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. But it's not fate. It's a summons to awaken, to return, to reclaim the scattered pieces of your soul. So how do you withdraw your projections? Jung offered a powerful tool, active imagination. Try this. Sit in stillness. Breathe deeply. Close your eyes. Invite the image of that man into your inner space and ask him, where do you come from? Within me. Then listen. Don't judge, just observe. Maybe he represents your emotionally distant father. Maybe he's the part of you that craves control but was told not to want too much. Maybe he's your unexpressed sexuality, your untamed wildness, your thirst for freedom. And when you can finally say to that image, I see you, but I no longer need you to stand in for me, then the projection begins to dissolve. And in that moment, you become free. This journey is not easy, but it's worth every step. When you no longer love to fill a void, but love as a soul already whole, you stop attracting shadows. You begin to draw in souls who have faced their own darkness, people who don't need you to save them, people who won't hurt you, people who will grow with you. So I invite you, share your story. Who have you loved as if they were part of your soul? What did that love reveal to you about yourself? And how are you learning to love yourself now? Write it in the comments, not just to release it, but to connect with others walking the same path. Let's create a space where shadows are seen, not shamed. And if this spoke to something deep within, you stay with me. Because in the next part, we'll explore, how do you tell the difference between true love and a shadow-born relationship? And what are the signs of a relationship that's being built from awakening, not wounding? Thank you for being here. This isn't just a video, it's a ritual of return. There's a question that haunts many hearts stepping out of unhealthy relationships. How do I know if this love is real or just my shadow playing pretend? Once you've walked through the pain of projection, once you've gathered back the lost pieces of your soul, that question becomes essential. Because you don't want to repeat the past. You don't want the next love to be another play directed by your old wounds. Carl Jung didn't leave us a checklist for true love, but he gave us something more powerful, an inner compass rooted in the feeling of wholeness and light. Shadow love intoxicates. True love brings peace. When love comes from the shadow, it often looks like this. It arrives too fast, too intense, too absolute. You meet someone and it feels electric. You can't stop thinking about them. You start scripting fantasies in your mind. We were meant to be. But the truth is, you don't really know them. You only know a part of yourself, the part using them as a mirror. In contrast, a healthy love that comes from inner maturity often doesn't strike like lightning. It arrives like warm water on skin. It touches gently, then slowly seeps into your heart. Not frantic, but deep. Not chaotic, but steady. Jung described this as the kind of relationship that arises after the shadow has been integrated. When two souls meet not to rescue or complete each other, but to walk alongside one another as whole beings grounded in their own essence. So how can you tell the difference between real love and projection? Watch yourself. When you're with this person, do you feel safe to be your full self? Can you express both your strength and your vulnerability? Can you say no without fearing abandonment? Do you feel loved without sacrificing who you are? If the answer is yes, then you're not living inside a projection. You're living inside a real connection, a soul bond, not a subconscious reaction. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." True love doesn't make you lose yourself. It transforms you gently and deeply. The other person might make you angry, but they help you learn how to express your boundaries. They might shine a light on your old wounds, but they don't make you relive them. They're not perfect, and you don't idealize them. Instead, you see them clearly, their light and their shadow, and you choose to stay, not because you need to, but because you understand. And most importantly, you do not lose yourself to keep them. If love makes you shrink, if it makes you question your worth, if it pulls you into emotional chaos, you can't control. That's your shadow, not your soul leading the way. But if love makes you want to grow, makes you come home to your body, to your mind, to your spirit, then you may be standing before something sacred. The core lesson. Not every love is the light. Some relationships exist only to reflect your shadow, and that's okay if you're willing to look at it. But eventually a time will come when you no longer seek to be saved, when you stop chasing miracles, when you no longer search for a soulmate because you have become your own. And from that place, you'll recognize who's worthy to walk beside you, not as your missing half, but as another whole soul. If this part stirred something in you, I invite you to reflect in the comments. What for you is the clearest sign of real love? Have you ever experienced a conscious relationship? What have you learned from walking away from shadow-driven love? We are building a community where hearts are learning how to love without losing themselves. Write, share, heal together. In the next chapter, I'll take you into a real-life story, a living example of a woman who broke free from a shadow relationship and found her way back to herself. You'll see this journey isn't dry theory. It's filled with tears, surrender, and also incredible hope. Stay with me, because ahead lies the path to true love, and it begins in your own heart. There's a deep paradox. Few are willing to face the darkest, most painful relationships, are often the raw material for your rebirth. Carl Jung believed that no one truly matures without coming face to face with their own darkness. And that darkness rarely shows up in meditation or in books, but in a glance, a touch, a love that feels like fate and leaves you in ruins. In this part, I want to tell you a story. Her name is Elise. She's 32, a successful creative designer loved by friends, living a life that seemed perfect until she met Liam. Liam wasn't a bad person, but he was cold, unavailable. He disappeared often, never committed, and always left Elise feeling not enough. And yet she couldn't walk away. She said, being with him made me feel like both a queen and a begging child. Every rational part of Elise screamed, leave, but her heart whispered, he's a part of me. She didn't understand how she had become so weak. Elise used to be fiercely independent. She once swore she'd never tolerate emotional neglect, yet here she was, waiting for his texts like medicine, waiting for crumbs of affection like they were gold. Until one day Elise began therapy, and slowly in the quiet space of self-reflection, a forgotten memory surfaced. She was 8 years old, crying in the dark, waiting for her father to come home, but he never did. And when he did, he was silent, stern, distant. So Elise tried harder, studied harder, behaved better, succeeded more, all in hopes of a single hug. But it never came. Liam wasn't her soulmate. He was the shadow of an unhealed memory, a reenactment of her father. And Elise unconsciously was trying to finish an unfinished story. Jung called this the compulsion to repeat, the unconscious drive to recreate the past, hoping this time there will be a different ending. But unless you become aware, you don't heal the wound, you just keep reliving it. After a long healing journey, Elise learned to reclaim her shadow. She no longer saw Liam as the one who got away, but as a mirror, a lesson, a messenger. She wrote in her journal, I don't want him back anymore. But I'm grateful he came like a postman delivering a letter from my inner child. And I finally opened it. You see, not every love story is meant to be kept. Some come only to help you see yourself more clearly. Maybe you're in a relationship right now that makes you feel small. Maybe you're repeating the patterns of your mother, your grandmother, women who once longed for love but never felt seen. Jung believed when we heal ourselves, we don't heal alone. We liberate an entire generational line of pain. So ask yourself, which relationship hurt you the most, but changed you the deepest? Have you ever forgiven yourself after a love that broke you? If you feel ready, I invite you to share in the comments. Not to expose yourself, but to remember you're not alone. To help build a community of hearts that have shattered, but are learning to beat again in rhythm with awakening. And if Elise's story feels at all like your own, stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore something vital. How do we integrate the shadow, not just to heal, but to transform it into power? You were not born to stay in suffering. You are here to understand the darkness, to embrace it, and to emerge with a new light in your heart. I'll see you in the next part. This journey is still unfolding. There's one final paradox, perhaps the most profound on this journey of healing from shadow-born love. The shadow is not the enemy. The shadow is the teacher. Carl Jung never asked us to banish or destroy the shadow. On the contrary, he believed one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Only when you can look directly into the darkness without fear, without denial, without running, can you truly grow. Because the shadow doesn't only hold pain, it holds suppressed life force, buried power, untapped potential. Think back. Have you ever felt anger, jealousy, envy, weakness, and then felt ashamed, felt like you were not good enough because of it? That is the gateway to the shadow. The shadow isn't as scary as you think. It's just trying to speak. It is the part of you that was once rejected by your family, by society, or by your own self. And now it's doing whatever it can to be acknowledged. Not to destroy you, but to remind you you're not whole without it. There's a powerful image often used in therapy. The shadow is the child locked in the basement, holding the torch. That very part you've been ashamed of, the rage, the desperation, the deep sensitivity, the wild longing for love, is the part leading you to a deeper light. The Jungian path is not about cleansing the mind. It's about making peace with the dark. It's about sitting with the parts that once made you ache and asking them, What do you need from me? And when you can embrace that shadow, transformation begins. Your anger becomes clarity and grounded boundaries. Your jealousy becomes emotional honesty. Your weakness becomes self-compassion. Your neediness becomes deep, soul-level connection without losing yourself. You are no longer a victim of love. You become the creator of relationships rooted in inner freedom and profound awareness. One woman once told me I used to fear my own darkness, but now I invite it to sit with me every morning and have tea, because I understand without it, I am only half of who I am. You can do this too. You can look into the ugly parts of yourself and say, I see you. I will not abandon you anymore. And you'll be surprised when that shadow smiles back and offers you gifts, life force, intuition, self-mastery, courage. So ask yourself right now, is there a part of you you've always avoided? If you sat with it, what would you say? And if you no longer feared your own darkness, who might you become? I invite you to share in the comments, not just as an expression, but as a commitment to yourself. I choose to face my shadow, and I'm no longer ashamed of it. Together, we're building a community where wounds are not hidden but honored as sacred chapters in the journey of becoming whole. And if you've made it this far, you're ready for something greater. Because in the final chapter, I'll share with you how to step into a new path where you don't just heal, but you unfold into a deeper, brighter, more powerful version of yourself. Let us close the old chapter, not with resentment, but with gratitude. Because he wasn't your soulmate, he was your shadow. And you are the light you've been looking for. Perhaps in the end, we finally understand every encounter in life, whether bathed in light or cloaked in shadow, is a call from the soul inviting us back to ourselves. Carl Jung never taught us to avoid pain. He never promised a perfect love. Instead, he handed us a map, a guide through the labyrinth of the unconscious, where darkness is not something to be feared, but a sacred gateway to the deepest transformation. You've walked with me through every layer of this story, from projection in love, to recognizing the shadow, to embracing it as an inseparable part of your becoming. And if you feel like you've just stepped through a threshold, you're right. You are no longer where you began. You've entered the realm of awakening. Maybe you'll still love the wrong person again. Maybe your heart will still stir at a familiar gaze, but you won't be blind anymore. Because once the light of awareness is lit, it never goes out. You'll begin to know when it's your heart speaking and when it's your shadow, when you're loving to fill a void and when you're loving from wholeness, when it's true destiny and when it's an echo of unhealed patterns. And from that place of knowing, you will stop searching for a soulmate to save you. You will start living as someone who has come home to themselves, what Jung called individuation. And from there, love is no longer a necessity. It becomes a gift. If today you've realized even one small thing about yourself, let it live. Write it down in the comments as an act of recognition. Share what touched you most in this journey. Where did you meet your shadow? Which past love are you now seeing with new eyes? If you could send a message to your most wounded self, what would you say? I invite you to write, not to explain, but to connect. Because somewhere out there, someone is carrying the same wound, and your words might be the medicine they need. If this video felt like a necessary pause in the rush of modern life, subscribe to this channel. Not for the algorithm, but because you deserve a space to return to, a place to slow down, to go deeper, to come back to what's real inside you. This channel is not for the hurried. It's for souls learning to live truthfully, deeply, wholly, consciously. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Thank you for looking inward with me. I'll see you again in the next video, the next journey, where every step, every tear, every heartbreak brings you closer to the truest version of who you are. The version you've always been, but forgot while searching for someone else. I can't tell you who your soulmate is, but I believe this. When you face your own shadow, you'll no longer need to search for them, because they will find you.